On June 22, 1953, a 13-year-old paperboy, Jimmy Bozart, was on his way home after collecting his payments when he tripped, spilling his coins all over the ground. One of the nickels, jostled by its fall, split in two, revealing a piece of microfilm hidden inside that displayed a series of 6-digit numbers. Jimmy showed the film to his father, who, suspecting it to be a code of some sort, handed it over to the police. Mr. Bozart's theory was correct, although the police would not crack the code until 1957, when Soviet spy Reino Hayhanen defected to the U.S. Hayhanen proved to be very cooperative and helped identify another spy, who was later found and arrested. He also taught the FBI the methods Soviet spies used to pass messages to one another. One such method consisted of placing messages inside hollowed-out screws, razors, and, get this, coins. Kendall and Gwen Myers came to a hotel bar in Washington, D.C. for a drink on June 4, 2009. Kendall was a former diplomat and a professor, Gwen a Democratic senator's aide. They were meeting a man they knew as Hector. Earlier that year, Hector had introduced himself, wishing Kendall a happy birthday and offering him a Cuban cigar on behalf of an old friend who was a Cuban intelligence official. Kendall took this to mean that Hector worked for the spy agency of Cuba's communist dictatorship. They met Hector several more times, and now they moved from the bar to a private room. Once there, Kendall and Gwen confirmed their history of passing classified intelligence to Cuba. That was all Hector needed to hear. He wasn't a Cuban spy after all. He worked for the FBI. Kendall and Gwen Myers were arrested, and Kendall is still in federal prison. Vitaly Yurchenko defected to the USA in August 1985 while in Rome. He was a high-ranking KGB officer, and his defection was initially considered a coup for the US. Yurchenko provided information about espionage activities against the US, including details that led to the arrest of Ronald Pelton and the investigation of CIA officer Edward Lee Howard. Then, just months after his defection, Yurchenko re-defected back to the Soviet Union. He claimed that he'd been kidnapped by the U.S., although U.S. officials maintained that he had defected of his own free will. Back in the USSR, he appeared in press conferences denouncing the U.S. and asserting his loyalty to the Soviet Union. Today, many think the KGB sent him as a disinformation agent to feed false information to the U.S. intelligence community, and that the redefection was a part of his original plan. Ronald Pelton started working at the National Security Agency in 1965, where he collected and analyzed electronic communications. He resigned in 1980. Facing financial problems, he approached the Soviet embassy and offered to sell U.S. government secrets. The Soviets accepted his offer and bought details of classified projects. One of the secrets he sold was about a covert project where the U.S. Navy was tapping Soviet underseas communications cables. Pelton's disclosures allowed the Soviets to foil the U.S. government plan. The U.S. became aware of Pelton's espionage when the CIA was debriefing Soviet defector Vitaly Yurchenko, who hinted that there was an insider selling secret government intelligence. This clue led investigators to Pelton. Pelton was arrested in November of 1985 in Annapolis, Maryland. He was charged with multiple counts of espionage and found guilty. He was imprisoned for his crimes and released. Edward Howard joined the CIA in 1980, immediately showing erratic behavior and alcohol problems. Before his first assignment, concerns led to a series of polygraph tests, each suggesting deception. The CIA fired him in 1983. Angry, he contacted the KGB offering information on CIA agents. Later, the CIA blamed him for leaking the identity of a Soviet spy, leading to his execution. Intel from a defected KGB officer accelerated the CIA's investigation, and as they moved in, he evaded arrest by leaping from his wife's car. He flew to Helsinki, defected to the Soviets, and settled in Russia. On July 12, 2022, Howard died from a broken neck but many speculated that it wasn't an accident but an assassination. Adolf Tolkachev was a designer of Soviet fighter planes. He seethed with anger as his wife's parents had been executed by Stalin. He tried contacting the CIA in 1977, passing a note to the driver of a U.S. Embassy car. The CIA did not respond, believing it to be a trap. He tried contacting U.S. officials many times, including going to a gas station used by foreigners. In 1979, the CIA finally gave him a camera to prove that he had secret information about Soviet planes. He became so important that he was called the billion-dollar spy. He worked until the 1980s until he was compromised. Theories about who exposed him are still debated, including Edward Howard, a CIA defector, and Aldrich Ames, another infamous CIA mole. Tolkachev was executed in 1986. Picture this. It's winter in the year 53 BC. You've just been instructed to deliver a message to the besieged Quintus Cicero with promise of great reward should you succeed. But you just can't get close enough to Cicero because of the presence of enemy troops. And so what do? Remembering Caesar's orders, you throw a spear into the camp where it embeds itself into a tower wall. And there it sits for 2 long days until one of Cicero's men, spotting it, brings it to him. Cicero finds a note attached to the spear and then delivers the good news to the rest of the troops. The note said that Caesar would speedily be with them. But it wasn't the contents of the note nor the way it was delivered that would capture the imagination of people centuries later. It was the fact that the note was written in what is now known as the Caesar cipher, one of the earliest secret codes.